Does your child experience sudden uncontrollable shaking or tremors or muscle twitches or tics or Tourette-like symptoms, and yet all the tests keep coming back completely normal? If that's the case, you might be probably feeling confused, frustrated, but more importantly, wondering what the heck? Why no one can figure out what's going on with your child? Because you know your child's not making things up, and then you know your child doesn't want to experience these things, but no one can give you the answer that you're looking for. I have helped so many parents and teens just like you who were stuck in this vicious cycle and trying to get the answers. However, all of the traditional and standardized tests keep coming back completely normal. Very confusing, and I can only imagine how overwhelming and heartbroken it is because you cannot help your child with the answer you're desperately looking for. If that is the case, you're not alone. In today's video, I am going to walk you through exactly why these tremors and uncontrollable shaking can happen, but nothing really shows up. What could be really going on that doesn't show up on tests like EEGs and MRIs? By the end of this video, you're going to walk away with clear understanding of what this potential hidden cause would be for your child, but more importantly, knowing exactly what to do next to help your child. So let's dive in. So let's start by understanding how functional tremors, that includes twitches and tics-like symptoms and all of that, work, and why these tests are actually missing them, and we know your child's not making things up, and what could be really going on here. Functional tremors are oddly very common condition, but often misunderstood by so many doctors, including a lot of therapists, I might add, because it looks like your child's either having seizure-like symptoms or almost like a Parkinson-like symptoms or sudden uncontrollable, very complex tic and Tourette-like symptoms, but the cause is not what you might think, because for your teenager child to have this sudden complex tics and Tourette-like symptoms are extremely rare. That is not the same thing as a classic tic disorder that has either vocal or motor symptoms. So let's talk about why these functional tremors happen and then how they are different from other conditions. So I had this teen, among many others, let's just say her name was Alex. She was at baseline pretty healthy, no concerns, maybe a little bit of anxiety, high achieving, very diligent, straight A student who was really in love with art, music, and theater. Until suddenly, when she was in 8th grade, she started having these tremors in her hand, and it was really causing her disturbance because she couldn't play an instrument in a band, and that was not really a good thing. And she never had this kind of tremors or anything like that. At first, she thought she was being nervous or maybe anxious because she was having this big event for her band. However, even after that event, she continued to have this problem. So she talked to her parents, hey, something is going on here. Of course, the parents were very worried, and they contacted Alex's pediatrician, who ran all kinds of tests they can imagine, and they couldn't really find anything. So it was like more like a scratching head moment. And then the pediatrician said, you should probably go see a neurologist. And the neurologist wait list was, guess what? 9 months out. In the meantime, Alex continued to have all these symptoms, and that was very concerning and disturbing because she couldn't do the theater, music, or art, or even schoolwork with this condition. And she was so concerned about her peers making fun of her, understandably so, right? So these tremors are not caused by any structural damage, just like Alex's case, in the brain or nerves. In fact, the brain and the body are physically and physiologically and structurally completely fine. But the problem is that there is a disconnect between the brain and the body, even though they're structurally completely fine, which leads to this uncontrollable movement, tremors, and tics-like symptoms and shakings. So what causes this disconnect to begin with, right? What is the hidden problem that doctors are missing, however, that is triggering these tremors? Well, let's dive in right now. So the real culprit behind these tremors, just like Alex, could be something called functional neurological disorder, short for FND. And that's exactly what Alex had. But what exactly is FND, you might be wondering, because I tell you this, 1000% of the families that I talk to, when they first hear the diagnosis of FND, they have never, ever heard of the diagnosis. And it's a real thing. So let me tell you, how does it lead to symptoms like shaking and tremors? All right. So back to Alex. As I mentioned, Alex didn't have any trauma or any stress, major anxiety or anything like that. Maybe she gets nervous here and there, but nothing really is crazy or insane. So what happened? Well, there are different factors, which I'm going to get to it in a minute. However, when she saw the neurologist, she ran even further neurological tests and exams and confirmed that this does not add up like just stress or just anxiety, and there's no trauma to begin with. So that ruled out, and it didn't also fit the picture of classic tic and Tourette nuts disorders because she did not have any of these signs until she was 8th grade, which is very, very unusual, just so you know. And so FND is a neurological condition where there is a miscommunication, literally the disconnect between the brain and the body. So your child's brain is not sending the right signal to the body and the muscles, and that's causing these twitches and tremors and shaking when there is no problem between the brain and the body physically. So now you might be wondering, okay, so we get that this is FND and then there's miscommunication between the brain and the body, but you might be wondering why there is a miscommunication between the brain and the body, even though physically and structurally the brain and the body are okay. Is it the stress? Is it the trauma? Or is it something else? Well, let's dive in. You might be actually surprised, and this is, I bet you, the first time you might be hearing this, is actually FND is caused by a mixture of 3 things. It's biological/physical, and it's psychological/emotional, and it's social factors. It's always this biopsychosocial model that explains why FND is happening. And when I say psychological, I don't mean it's a stress and trauma or anxiety only. It is more about the coping strategies, belief system, the people pleasers, high achieving perfectionistic tendencies. There's nothing wrong with it. However, when these things get all connected together, that also leads to, unfortunately, FND. So when I say biological, it doesn't necessarily mean like genetics only. It could be the injury, illness, the brain function or dysfunction, the eating style, sleep habits. All of these things are in that biological component. So kind of going back to this Alex's case, socially good family, but parents had no idea what was going on with Alex. So what did they do? They used the natural instinct of protecting Alex from anything and everything that is possibly triggering Alex's symptoms of tremors and shaking. So what happened? They pulled her out of the school, no hobbies, no music, art, or theater, and she was basically hunkered down in her bedroom, hoping that nothing is going to be in a way of her recovering from this mysterious condition. And parents also were very relaxing and said to Alex, oh, Alex, you don't need to do any of the house chores or any other house responsibilities. You just lay down. You don't even need to go to school. You just lay down and then rest as much as possible so you can get better. Guess what? With FND, that is actually pouring the gasoline to the fire. But family didn't know any better, right? Because nobody is telling them what to do the right way to actually get out of this vicious cycle. But that's exactly what's happening. The mind-body connection is incredibly powerful and it is real. Obviously, Alex is not making things up, and Alex's parents are not making things worse intentionally because they don't know what it is that they're dealing with. This kind of biopsychosocial factors are always playing a role in how it started and how it's still alive, even though they want to get out of the vicious cycle. So if your child is dealing with functional tremors and uncontrollable shaking and nothing is really showing up on the test, then it's time for you to really think about, could it be functional neurological disorder? That would be the right question to ask to your child's doctor, because don't settle for the diagnosis that doesn't make sense or that doesn't fit. Look for and look into FND as a potential cause and work with mostly a neurologist who might be somewhat familiar or know about FND. Even though they don't know anything about FND, you have every right to ask them, hey, we met before and we suspect that our child is actually having something called FND. Can you check this again? You have every right to ask that question. And then even starting with a pediatrician or family medicine, that's okay. Then go from there. Don't settle. FND is real. As I mentioned, your child's not making things up, and then you know that already. So that also means you don't have to lose hope, because with the right approach and right structure, the recovery from these mysterious conditions is completely possible. I've seen it one too many times. And you can even download my Teen FND Family Action Plan Guide down here for free to learn more about FND. What are the other symptoms? Why this is happening? What is this biopsychosocial model? And more importantly, what you can do to help your child along with what the teen can do to get better. If you're ready to learn more, click the link below to watch a short video talking about a step-by-step system that helps hundreds of families overcome FND. This will give you a clear understanding of exactly what to do to support your teen towards recovery and get your life back. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.